Tracy Reese. My name is Tracy Reese, and I'm a reference librarian here at the Texas State Library and Archives Commission, or TSLAC. Session, we'll explore some research strategies for African American genealogy research, such as working from the present back in time to the 1870 census and expanding your research from there. We'll also explore records that may be helpful in your research, many of which we do hold here at TSLAC. So first, a little bit about TSLAC. We're located in downtown Austin, Texas, by the Capitol building. Both of our reading rooms are currently open to the public. We always like to share an overview of TSLAC's mission and the services and programs our agency provides to Texans. Today's webinar is part of our mission to provide Texans access to needed information. TSLAC includes 3 service areas, which are the Reference and Information Center, the Texas State Archives, and the Sam Houston Center, which is located in Liberty, Texas. If you'd like to learn more about our agency, please visit our website. Before we begin, please be aware that the terminology used to describe slavery and enslaved individuals may include certain offensive words, terms, or phrases from the time periods of the resources being discussed. More information about this terminology and how we use it here at TSLAC is on our website. Our focus today will be to emphasize basic research strategies. You'll want to start from the present and work back in time, letting known information lead to additional resources. At TSLAC, our collection focus is on government records, so it helps to think creatively. For example, how would your ancestor or whoever you're researching have interacted with local, state, or federal government? And what type of record would have come from that interaction? The following slides will discuss different kinds of government records and how they can help with your family research. The U.S. Census is a cornerstone of genealogy research. It has been taken every 10 years since 1790 and remains confidential for 72 years. The 1950 census became public in April of this year. The 1870 census is an important milestone for African American research. This is the first time African Americans are listed as individuals with first and last names, but also the last time before disappearing as we go back, and they were recorded as property instead of people. One popular research strategy is to trace ancestors to the 1870 census and pay close attention to those living nearby, who could be family members or former slaveholders. Enslaved individuals were often bought, sold, and inherited within the same families for generations, so these associations can be important for research. Going back in time, the next comprehensive record of African Americans is known by several names: the Slave Census, Slave Schedules, or Schedule II. Beginning in 1850, individual slave holdings were listed separately as a supplemental census schedule. This enumeration was made for 1850 and 1860 and includes the name of the slaveholder and a line entry for each enslaved person, which includes age, sex, and color, such as Black or mulatto, but no names. These records are frustrating to work with, but they can be useful to circumstantially provide connections between enslaved and enslaver. As I mentioned earlier, the Texas State Archives houses multiple collections that may be of interest to genealogy researchers. Some examples of state records with genealogical value include military service records, pensions, claims, and muster rolls. About 20 Confederate pension applications have been identified as belonging to African American veterans. One muster roll entry for Civil War service has been identified for Lewis, quote, a Negro, and the 1867 voter registration list was the first time Black males of voting age in Texas were listed as individuals by their first and last name. Our discussion of archival resources covers the Reconstruction era through the early 20th century. During this time, formerly enslaved individuals and their families had the possibility of exercising new rights, including suffrage, education, banking, and land ownership. In addition, there may be records for individuals who served in the state police or legislature, or entered a state prison or other state-supported institution. The process for Confederate states to re-enter the Union involved affirming U.S. law, including the abolition of slavery and ensuring the voting rights of African American men. This law required that by September 1st, 1867, each district would register all male citizens of the United States over the age of 21 years that were qualified to vote. Voter registration records include name, birth, residency, and naturalization information, and other remarks. Charles W. Bryant, whose name is shown here in the 1867 voter registration list, represented Harris County in the Texas legislature during Reconstruction. He registered to vote on June 14th, 1867, and listed his residence as Houston. He appears to have lived in Texas for 10 years and in Harris County for 10 months. The second page contains additional information. The ditto marks under native may mean he was born in the United States rather than in Texas. Many names have an X and, quote, his mark as part of the signature, which leads us to believe that these individuals were unable to read or write. Literacy of enslaved individuals was discouraged and often illegal in many states. Bryant does not have the X. His ability to read and write is confirmed by the fact that literacy was a requirement to hold office. Ditto marks under colored appear next to his name. A guide to the voter registration lists is available on our website. Scholastic census records are organized differently depending on the county and time period. Some might list students, names of parents, or heads of household. Typically, later Scholastic census records list students individually or with their family and include birth dates, parents' names, school, grade, and race. These records also include African American schools. Here's a Scholastic census record for Common School District number 7 in Blanco County, Texas. You can see the full name of the child, nationality listed here as colored, name of person rendering child, usually a parent, and age, and then sex. Holdings in the Texas State Archives include Scholastic census records for some counties, but not all. For paper records, we have finding aids available for Bastrop, McLennan, and Milam counties. We also have some county Scholastic records on microfilm. At TSLAC in Austin, we hold the film for Blanco, Caldwell, Gillespie, Guadalupe, and Llano counties. Some microfilm records may be held at our Regional Historical Resource Depository participants. Please check our website for these details. And keep in mind that additional records not filmed or transferred to TSLAC may still be held at the county level, so you'll want to check there for any records. You can also use school records for genealogical information on our ancestors who were teachers. TSLAC holds teacher certification records, which can include information about individuals such as address, college from which they graduated, their age, and number of years as a teacher. The annual reports of school funds are available on microfilm and can be browsed by county, year, and school district. The annual reports often list teachers' names and salaries. Normal college records include lists of students and graduates. The Bureau of Refugees, Friedman, and Abandoned Lands was a federal agency that played an important role immediately following the Civil War. More commonly known as the Freedmen's Bureau, this agency operated in Texas from 1865 to 1870 and assisted formerly enslaved individuals in their transition to freedom. Some of these records document activities prior to the creation of the Bureau. For example, marriage records were collected from 1861 through 1869, first by the Union Army and then by the Freedmen's Bureau in its field offices in the southern states. These records are not held at TSLAC, but are available on the Family Search website. Much of the Freedmen's Bureau collections are not thoroughly indexed, which means you'll want to browse the records of the field office closest to where your ancestors lived. This Freedmen Bureau labor contract from Fort Bend County shows the names of landowners and the African Americans exchanging their labor for payment. The remarks column usually include the terms of the contract, which for this example provides, quote, furnishing the freedmen 1/4 of the whole crop. These contracts can be combined with other resources clustered around the time of emancipation to research genealogical connections. Civil War, African Americans may have been serving in the state police or state guard. Reconstruction records available at our agency also include records of murders and assaults of African American citizens in Texas. These records are described in the online finding aids linked here. Digital images of the service records are also available on our website. This is an example from our Reconstruction records of murders and assaults, showing the name and race of the criminal, the name and race of the person injured, and a description of the offense. The incident recorded here occurred in April of 1967 in Liberty County. Tom Slater, an African American, was stabbed in the chest with a knife by McCarty, who was white. The statement of circumstance describes these events in detail. Despite an end to slavery, many African Americans were imprisoned and subsequently leased out for their labor by the Texas prison system to private landowners. Some African Americans found themselves working back on the same plantations where they had been enslaved. Convict ledgers list and describe inmates sentenced to and received by the state penitentiary in Texas. The information includes a physical description, the place of birth of inmate and parents, education, occupation, sentence, and how they were released. Additional documentation may be found in clemency records and court records, which I'll discuss shortly. Specifically, these record collections include convict record ledgers, ledger indexes, and conduct registers. Additional information is on the TSLAC website at the address listed on this slide. Microfilm may be borrowed through interlibrary loan, and digital images are available through ancestry.com Texas. Our agency also maintains records of pardon proclamations and applications. As previously mentioned, convict ledgers may indicate the existence of a pardon record for a particular individual. We hold pardon proclamations from 1846 through 2009 in various formats and locations, and name indexes to the pardon proclamations are available from 1846 through 1970. These records can provide additional details concerning what the individual was charged with, where they resided, their behavior, their sentence, and dates. If the individual filed an appeal, there may be records in our Court of Criminal Appeals holdings, which cover 1892 to 2010. If the case went to the Supreme Court, we may have those records as well. Our holdings include 1840 to about 2004 or 2005. The Capitol Building Commission monitored the planning and construction of the present state Capitol building. As many of those who worked to construct the Capitol were African American, the payroll lists and vouchers in this collection contain valuable information for researchers. Some of the information contained in these records is listed here. Although this photograph is not part of the commission records, the individuals pictured here are likely documented in the payrolls and vouchers. Continue to move back in time to Civil War era records. It may be challenging to locate records for African Americans during this time period. One collection that may be helpful are the Adjutant General's Confederate records, specifically the records entitled Reports of Slave Impressment. These records consist of 2 reports of enslaved laborers being impressed during the Civil War, dated 1863 and 1865. These records are described in the online finding aid linked here. Civil War era records were created after the war, but document the activities of African Americans during wartime. For example, our staff have identified 20 Confederate pension applications belonging to African Americans. This image of a Confederate pension application belongs to Henry Phillips, who reports that he constructed breastworks or low defense walls in Galveston and Sabine while he was enslaved. In pre-Civil War era Texas, free persons of color were not allowed to remain in the state unless exempt by legislative action. The memorials and petitions would show that a request was made to the Texas Congress or legislature to remain in the state, and the general and special laws would show if Congress granted permission for the subject to remain. Memorials and petitions can contain descriptive information about individuals, including their residence, reputation, abilities, and names of individuals who knew the subject of the petition. This petition was submitted by Cynthia Ewing, requesting that a woman formerly enslaved by her, Lily or Delilah, who purchased her freedom, be allowed to remain in Texas. The petition was submitted November 1st, 1847, and several pages of signatures include testaments to her ability as a cook. Digital images are indexed and are available on Ancestry. Legislative responses to memorials and petitions would have been documented through the bill files and general and special laws of Texas. TSLAC holds the bill files for Texas from this time period. The signed laws filed with the Secretary of State's office have been digitized and are available on the Texas Digital Archive from the first Congress of the Republic of Texas through the 18th Legislature of the State of Texas. The laws of Texas are available in print format in our reference and documents collection, and the early printed laws are also digitized through the portal to Texas History. The same law that banned the foreign slave trade in 1807 also regulated the internal transportation of enslaved persons, requiring vessel commanders carrying human cargo in coastal waters to provide manifests when leaving or outward and entering or inward a port. Ports stretched from Baltimore, Maryland to Texas, including ports such as Galveston, Indianola, Matagorda, and Lavaca. Although these are not held by TSLAC, they can be very useful in genealogy research. These record collections are available through Ancestry. Its 1853 manifest records enslaved individuals being sent from New Orleans to Galveston by Mirabeau B. Lamar, second president of the Republic of Texas. These manifests included the first and last names of enslaved individuals. Here's an example of a manifest showing first and last names of enslaved persons. These are held at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. Local government records are helpful for filling in gaps in genealogical research. Many important records were recorded at the local level, including real property records, probate records, vital statistics such as birth, marriage, and death records, naturalization records, county and district court minutes, and school records. While tax records do not include genealogical data, they are useful for determining when someone came to a county, how long they resided there, and when they left the county or died. We have tax records on microfilm from the year of many county organization through the late 1970s. Newspapers from the time period and geographic areas being researched are a valuable supplement to government records. SLAC holds various Texas newspapers in original and microfilm format, and we also hold several subscription databases that you can access here on site. The Sam Houston Center maintains a collection of local original newspapers as well. In the newspaper example shown here, we located an 1851 advertisement offering a $300 reward for the return of a freedom seeker. The advertisement gives the name of the enslaved, the complexion, age, height, appearance, trade, and notes his skill as a fiddler. We also know his general whereabouts, as well as the slaveholder's name and location. The Portal to Texas History hosts the Texas Digital Newspaper Program, which contains over 1,700 digitized and searchable Texas newspapers. The Texas Runaway Slave Project from Stephen F. Austin State University is a searchable database of approximately 2,500 advertisements documenting freedom seekers. The Southwestern Christian Advocate was a Methodist newspaper for the southern states printed from 1877 to 1929. This paper reports on African American Methodist communities throughout the South, including Texas, and included the Lost Friends section where readers submitted biographical information that would hopefully reunite them with loved ones separated during slavery. This column often contained several generations of genealogical data and would be read from the pulpit by ministers throughout the South. A database of the Lost Friends column is available online through the Historic New Orleans Collection. The entire newspaper is digitized and searchable by year through the Internet Archive. For more information about these resources, you can download this PowerPoint when it becomes available. Publications can provide important historical context for framing events in addition to noting specific names, dates, and activities. Publications are especially useful in pointing to other materials, including archival documents and collections that authors used in their research. As a federal and Texas state publications depository, TSLAC maintains documents published by federal and Texas state agencies. This example shows the 1899 annual report for the state institution named the Institute for the Deaf, Dumb, and Blind Colored Youths. These reports list names of residents up until about 1920. In summary, we have explored several research strategies, including starting from the present and working your way back. When you reach the 1870 census, it may be useful to research connections and resources associated with the geographic location of a specific individual at that time. Throughout your research, think about what kinds of records may have been created from your ancestors' interaction with local, state, and federal government. We have covered many of these resources created at the state level held by TSLAC during our presentation today. Next month's seminar on resources of the Republic era picks up chronologically where our presentation leaves off. Also, be sure to visit our research guide on African American genealogical research for additional information and sources. Know how we can help you with your research. Although we're unable to conduct in-depth genealogical research for you, we're happy to share resources that may be helpful. You can contact us by mail, phone, or email. Our standard response time is 7 to 10 business days. And when contacting us, it's helpful to provide as much information as possible about your request. If you're interested in collections at our Sam Houston Regional Library and Research Center in Liberty, Texas, we recommend that you contact them directly. Thanks for attending.